Hey guys, I just want to do a spooky little quick upload. I wanted to talk a little bit about like why it is that many schizoids are particularly interested in the strange, and that strangeness kind of depends. It kind of depends on the type of schizoid personality type we're talking about. Uh, Individuals obviously have their own kind of choice interests, but nonetheless, the sort of what is termed idiosyncratic thinking tends to show itself in some form or another. Obviously, not to the levels of some of our neighbors in Cluster A, like Schizotypal or something, but nonetheless, it exists. Rose. And I often wonder why. Um, for example, some of us more grounded in just wanting to read more about ancient views or ancient tradition, ancient perspectives on reality, have an interest in the occult, esoteric texts. The older the manuscript, the better. The stranger, the more difficult to find, the less read uh, the less it's been read as a whole, the more interesting it tends to be. And then applying it to whatever current understandings about reality we can. Some of us like that rabbit hole. Other of us are more interested in the more fantastical stuff. Like we want to know more about um, for example, like more paranormal considered stuff like entities, ghosts, more tangible stuff that feels like it could be more tangible. Stuff like the searchers for the tangible, for altered realities, altered forms of what we understand to be every day. Um, so some of us go down those rabbit holes, right? Searching for the paranormal or the supernatural in a variety of ways, but not necessarily diving into old texts and um, things like that. I probably fall under a combination of both myself. And then a third route too could be those that are into just the metaphysical, like not necessarily all that fascinated with anything paranormal or whatever, or anything, any particular old script or ancient writing, but or magical texts, but more interested in like philosophy and the metaphysical aspects of it, and the logic behind and reason behind why certain things may or may not exist, and if they did, how would they function, and things of that nature, and maybe delving into the inner space of the mind until you can find something that's so abstract that it could almost be quantified as paranormal to a degree, right? Or at least something less understood by modern science or empiricism. So I think that's really cool and interesting. Why is it the schizoids tend to have these interests? I'm not saying all do, but most of them have some kind of interest in some idea of achieving or claiming or discovering esoteric knowledge for themselves. As well, another interesting subject too is like even the ones that say scoff at the magical or the mystical or whatever, even they have like really interesting views that tend to be highly idiosyncratic and almost science fiction. They become obsessed or interested in things like singularity or body modification, futures, and futurism as a whole. They start dreaming up ideas, ethical implications, moral implications of fantastical futures, possibilities. Um, I've had people tell me that like they don't believe in, say, the conventional supernatural methods of discovering something, but they believe that there's a scientific method of like discovering that which is deemed supernatural, and it's not as fantastical as it's made out to be, and things like that. So it's just funny. It's funny. It still kind of goes down that route oftentimes. I would say I'm a pretty strong amalgamation of like all that stuff. I'm interested in all of it and how it connects and how it blends. Um, but that's not everyone. But I know there's some out there that are kind of like me, that just a jack of all trades of the strange, regardless of the reality bending philosophical position and levels of abstraction you're referring to. I also want to talk really quickly about the more real reason this might occur. I'm not saying that's why, a more kind of personal reason. It might just be cope. It might just be us trying to find something outside of the realm of what's in here because that's all we have. Trying to look for something that we can actually connect to existentially in some regard, or a human connection. If we can't find that, if the human connection is not something that is achievable, we will search other places, other realms, other dimensions, other planes of reality, other whatever, even space, the cosmic. We search for alien life, something that can allow us to achieve it. Some of us experiment with um, chemicals and things like that. I'm not one of those, but I know others that do in order to achieve some sort of sight, if you will, to locate something outside of what is currently available. I think it's a combination of boredom and the inability to connect with to the social and emotional world that is so readily available to you at all points. And it seems to be that that world is trying to connect to you, but that's not the world you really want to take part in. Um, though that might not necessarily be the healthiest choice because you can end up in some pretty weird places that might not be pragmatic for your life. That's a whole different topic. Um, yeah, I just if you have answers or if you think or have some theories on why it is that schizoids gravitate toward this stuff, drop it in the comments. If you want to talk about it more thoroughly and you're a schizoid, join the server. It's in the About Me. Hop in there and go through the steps and answer the little vetting questions. We just do it just to make it more chill there. Um, do you think it's all cope? Do you think it's all just a desperate clinging and searching to something, to connect to something, or to finally be less bored? I mean, would you really be less bored if you found a portal to another dimension or something silly like that and then traveled there? Wouldn't you, once you got there, realize, oh no, I can't connect to the entities here either in some other regard, or maybe I could connect to them even less than the ones that I was already encountering? Remember, those other entities that you can connect to already exist and they are on the server. So come and join us if you would like. Come be a part of our little spooky club of weirdos. It's pretty wholesome there. It's kind of crazy sometimes. It just varies depending on who's on it at any given point. Um, if you like what I'm doing, and if you like the channel, and if you like the server, or if you like any combination of that, please support me on Patreon. It's on the About Me also, or PayPal me if you don't like that shit, or if you really don't like any of that shit. I got a Bitcoin Litecoin address there too somewhere, I think. Um, anyway, thanks for listening, and please just drop some comments, either here or if you use the server on the server. I'm curious to what your theories are pertaining to why this seems to be the case. Um, on a really also, I gotta mention this, a quick personal note. It's just I grew up most of my life thinking I was just some weirdo that was into all kinds of strange shit. When I discovered my peoples, uh, I just found it funny that so many of them are into all this very strange shit, though they're into a different kind of varieties of it or specific sort of interests. But it always turns into the esoteric, not necessarily a cult, but always the strange, experimental, and esoteric tends to be the case in some regard. I know there's exceptions, but I think it's more often than not. Okay, guys, thanks a lot for listening.